Watch what comes out of his mouth when a Conservative backbencher from Broxbourne corners him on £70 billion that his Labour government cannot explain. Watch what he reaches for when a 33-year-old MP from a Hertfordshire commuter seat asks him a clean question about working people's wages. Watch the answer he chooses, because it is the same answer he reaches for every Wednesday in the chamber, and it's now arguably become his political tombstone. I thought this was going to be another forgettable PMQ session. The Mandelson story was on every front page, the local elections that were 18 days away, and Sir Keir Starmer was going to do what he always does: absorb 6 questions from Kemi Badenoch, recycling the same stock answer, and then walk back across the lobby looking grey. That was the script. But a backbench Conservative MP stood up and asked one question, just one, about money, £70 billion of it. And what the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom said back is the clip you'll see at the end of this video. Stay with me, we need to walk through how he got here. The Conservative MP for Broxbourne is called Lewis Cocking. He won his seat in July 2024 with a majority of just under 3,000. He's not a household name, he's not a cabinet minister, he's not even a shadow frontbencher. He is a backbencher on the green benches. And the figure he pinned to Starmer's chest was a real one. According to the Office for Budget Responsibility's March 2026 Economic and Fiscal Outlook, total welfare expenditure is projected to reach £407 billion by 2030 to 2031, up from £314 billion in 2024 to 2025. Driven, the OBR is explicit by the sharp growth of disability and health caseloads since the pandemic, accelerated by a Labour government that has, in policy terms, made the bill bigger, not smaller. But the figure is not the story. The figure is the setup. The story is what is happening to working people in the meantime. According to ITV News reporting on the Reeves budget of November 2025, the Chancellor extended the personal income tax threshold freeze to April 2031. The OBR confirmed that 1.7 million more people in England, Wales and Northern Ireland will be dragged into higher tax bands as wages rise with inflation. 780,000 people will pay basic rate income tax for the first time. 920,000 will be dragged into the higher rate and 4,000 into the additional rate. The total rate in a single budget was £26 billion. Reeves' own words at the dispatch box were that she was asking everyone to make a contribution. This is the manifesto pledge Labour made on the doorsteps in 2024. They told working people that they would not raise their taxes. They wrote it down. They printed it on the leaflets. They sent it to every household in the country. And then 16 months later, they did exactly the thing they said they would not do. Therefore, when Cocking stood up at the dispatch box, the question was not theoretical. The question was very simple. What do you say to people whose pay packets just got smaller? Because you swore on a stack of leaflets they wouldn't. And the Prime Minister had to answer it in real time, on camera, with no notes. That is not even the worst part of it. When the moment came, the Prime Minister, he reached for the same line he reached for every PMQs. The line his own Labour backbenchers, according to the New Statesman this month, openly losing patience with. The line that says nothing about £70 billion, nothing about the people he was asked about, and nothing about the policy he himself signed off in November. And that is exactly where what happened next was such a problem for him, because the room was already loaded before Cocking opened his mouth. 3 things were sitting on Starmer's shoulders. The first was Peter Mandelson. 2 weeks earlier, the Prime Minister had been forced to come to the Commons and admit a serious error of judgment over Mandelson's appointment as US Ambassador. The former Foreign Office boss, Oliver Robbins, in front of the Foreign Affairs Committee, confirmed on the record that Mandelson's vetting had not been completed by the time the appointment was approved by the King and announced to Washington. Kemi Badenoch's verdict from the dispatch box: it wasn't a proper process. Starmer had personally signed it off. The second was his polling. According to YouGov's January 2026 political favourability tracker, Starmer's net favourability stands at -57. Joint lowest of any Prime Minister recorded by YouGov in the modern era. The only Prime Minister with a worse score was Liz Truss. 18% of the country views him favourably, 75% unfavourably. And even among the people who voted Labour in 2024, more than half now view him negatively. The third was the calendar. The local elections were scheduled for the 7th of May. According to Ipsos's April 2026 Political Monitor, Reform UK was on 25, Labour on 19, Conservatives also on 19, and Greens on 17. To find out now, MRP poll for PLMR projected Labour collapsing to 86 seats in a general election from 411 in July 2024. That was the room. That was the context. A Prime Minister who had just sacked his US ambassador, whose polling matched Liz Truss, who was 18 days away from a hammering at the locals, who had personally just signed off on a £26 billion tax raid on the very people his manifesto had promised to protect. And this is just the political stakes. Wait till you hear what happened the moment Cocking finished his question, because it is the line the Speaker, Sir Sir Lindsay Hoyle has had to rebuke him for on the floor of the Commons on camera this month. Here it is, the exchange that should have ended a sentence on every Labour doorstep before the locals. Cocking's question, it was clean. It had three components: £70 billion in rejected new welfare spending by 2030, tax rises on the working people to pay for it, and then a final clause that landed the point: people across the United Kingdom being asked to pay more and getting less. The Prime Minister then had a moment to choose. He could have answered on the policy. He could have explained why the welfare reform he himself backed in the summer of 2025 was voted down by his own MPs. He could have addressed the 1.7 million people about to be dragged into higher tax bands by his own Chancellor's threshold freeze. Any of those would have been an answer. He reached instead for the line that has now become his political tombstone. The line his backbenchers cringe at. The line that, according to the New Statesman this month, the Speaker himself recently had to interrupt him over, reminding him on camera that the session is called Prime Minister's Questions, not Leader of the Opposition's Questions. The Speaker had to remind a sitting Prime Minister that the country wanted answers about the country, not answers about who is not in government. He reached for it again in response to a question about £70 billion of working class money. The same answer he gave the week before, and the week before that, and the week before that. This is not about one PMQs. This is about a Prime Minister who, on the central financial question of his premiership, has no answer. The Office for Budget Responsibility forecasts the tax to GDP ratio will hit 38.3% in 2030 to 2031, an all-time high in British peacetime history. Ipsos's April 2026 Economic Optimism Index records 78% of Britons expecting the economy to get worse, the worst figure ever recorded since the index began in 1978. And on the floor of the House of Commons, when asked who is paying for that, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom looks backwards. That is the moment, that is the answer, that is what working people in Broxbourne, in Hartlepool, in Bridlington, in Rotherham, in Stevenage, and in your constituency just got told to their face by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in response to a clean question about their wages. I've told you what led here. I've told you what was at stake in the room. I've told you what the documented record shows. The only thing left is the answer itself, the exact words he chose and the exact moment he chose them.
And only a Labour government will deliver this kind of change.
Ms. Cocking.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, welfare spending is set to rise by another £70 billion by 2030. And the last time I asked the Prime Minister about this, he said he was mending the system. Well, since then, Mr. Speaker, this disastrous Labour government have raised taxes on working people to give even more to those who don't. The people I speak to across Broxbourne think that this Labour government are taking them for mugs. So what does the Prime Minister say to working people across this United Kingdom who are being asked to pay more and are getting less?
I'll tell them they were let down very badly by the last government for 14 years, and we're clearing up the mess.